And they said there was a hold on that, but would I want to go as far as the trucking division? And so I told him yes, because I wanted to do a part for my country.
After the bomb blast and emergency care in Iraq, Woodson was flown home. No longer able to work, he turned to lawyer Toby Cole, who knew how to get the medical benefits Woodson had been promised.
He felt comfortable telling me about his problems, about his medical issues, about his health, and his care he was getting, and so he asked me to kind of help him out.
Cole spent more than a year battling both KBR and its insurance company and demanding help from government agencies. He won workers' compensation claims, and Attorney Cole made sure Woodson got medical coverage under a federal program. In the process, Cole learned how little anyone knows about the use of private contractors in Iraq.
I think just about any time over the past couple of years you can find on the internet or on TV how many soldiers have been injured. You can't find how many contractors were injured. You can't find how many were blown up, how many were sent back, disabled. That information isn't out there. And so if you blow up a contractor, it's not that big of a deal because the public really doesn't know about it.
Even though John Woodson was caught in the crossfire of war, he wasn't counted in the Pentagon's official record of the wounded. In truth, there is no official military record of injuries to private contractors. The only government office that tracks contractors is a small agency that administers workers' compensation programs in the Department of Labor. 4 years into this war, the record shows that at least 770 private contractors have been killed in Iraq and almost 8,000 have been injured.
Do you have any idea how many total people are involved?
Well, the latest census seems to say it's about 100,000, almost as many as the uniformed military that we have in Iraq. No one thinks about that.
Representative Jan Schakowsky, a Democrat from Illinois, has been asking for information about the private contractors, their injuries, and their missions for almost a year.
It's never talked about. There are unclear guidelines of what their mission is, who they report to, what their accountability is. And as members of Congress and as the public, don't you think that we ought to know? We may be going to the point where we're going to have a war for hire, and the rest of us, as our patriotic duty, will be told to go shop.
Well, what about the argument that's bound to be put forward by some people, not confined to the Defense Department, that there ought to be secrets about this, that our enemies and potential enemies shouldn't know our full capacity and therefore keep all this off the radar screen?
I think in a democracy, if you have an administration deciding, well, we won't say anything, but we'll just send another 20,000 that we hire, or another 10,000 that we hire, then the scope of the war is completely unknown to the American people. And I think that is very dangerous for a democracy.
The Constitution is built with checks and balances to prevent getting into foreign wars without a careful thought and the will of the American people behind it.
Marine Colonel Thomas Hammes, now retired, arrived in Kuwait in 2004 to help train the Iraqi army. Behind the front lines, he found private contractors a welcome addition to American forces.
They maintain the bases, the camps, the facilities, the truck drivers. Much better to have 40-year-old truck drivers who have been pushing trucks for 20 years driving around the Middle East rather than our 18-year-old truck drivers who it's their first time out in this area.
Do you think most Americans know about this business of contracting out part of our war effort?
I think most Americans don't know, and I think one of the reasons they don't is contractors are treated almost like they're not Americans. Everybody support the troops, support the troops. The contractors are going through the same thing, getting shot up, being wounded, but nobody's saying support the contractor, support the contractor.
Well, why did the administration decide to outsource as much as it did to these contractors?
I think it was an effort to save U.S. forces, to convince people that we could go in light, not stay very long, not get bogged down, and turn it over to contracts.
What worried Colonel Hammes was the deployment of contractors, often unarmed, into battle zones.
I get very concerned anytime you cross into an area of actual hostility.
So I was going to ask you to make a list of those areas where you think it's inappropriate to use contractors.
Essentially, anywhere they're armed, any place that the threat is really significant. And of course, that would include for convoy operations in places like we're seeing in Iraq today.
From the first days of the war, those convoys, some stretching for miles down Iraqi highways, were often run by civilians with limited military escorts.